Hi, I'm Robin Gully.
I'm John Justin.
We are your Ward 2 council people here in West St. Paul, here to give you your council recap for February 26th,
2024. So I'm going to cruise through the open council work session here pretty quickly. The first item was boards and commission appointments, and I think that we'll just talk about that because it came back in the main meeting. So we'll talk about that at that point. And then we went to so what we've done is we normally have a strategic planning meeting. It's an all-day thing. It's really good. But this year we did one last year, and we felt that it might be a better use of staff time and our time to kind of do it in pieces in open council work sessions. So we kind of had the first big overarching step of that tonight, which was talking about the Baldridge Performance Excellence and Community Level Indicators. And that's an organization that looks not just at cities, but at mostly for-profit entities and talks about sort of the structural ways, the results, all of that stuff. It's scored. We're not trying to win it this year or anything. 4 cities have won it ever, but it's a good framework for us to kind of have to work from as we get deeper into it. So this was a big overview talking about like what are some of the things that we would have listed as what we're shooting for, and then we're going to get into metrics and how do we measure it and how we do whatever. The overarching thing right now isn't even set in stone, but they're generally the sort of things you would expect to see: public safety, accessibility, economic development, housing, diversity, equity, inclusion. And so we just kind of got the structure sort of walked through tonight, talked about maybe, there's an idea of, again, because it's from a for-profit thing, they talk about customers and, competitors. Obviously, we kind of have customers, we don't have competitors, but we talked about kind of what cities should we be using to compare ourselves to if that's the sort of thing we want to do. And there was a pretty good discussion about some different ideas about that. But I would say that it's worth looking at. It gives you the big framework of kind of where we're going to go from here. And probably the next 4 to 5 open council work sessions, there's going to be a pretty good segment spent on drilling down further into this. But if you want to get the overview, it's the PowerPoint's in there. It really goes through really well. I'm forgetting the name of the guy who did it, who is a relatively newish hire, and this is the first time he's done this presentation. Did a great job, brings a lot. It's nice to have somebody bring this stuff to us so we can have something to start with. It's tough to start from ground zero and build from there. So,
well, and I was just going to add really quickly, and maybe you want to scroll down and see who, I can't remember who did it, but I was going to say that for the next, for the foreseeable future, our open council work sessions are likely to start at 5. So if you're a person who likes coming or tuning in, that's useful to know. And a big part of that is that we usually do a day-long strategic planning session, and have decided to do it this way.
Chop it up
every
a little
other
bit.
year to chop it up a little bit.
It makes it a little easier I'll tell you, by about hour 6, those things do start to degenerate, no matter how much coffee and donuts you've shoved into yourself. It's a lot of mental fatigue to do those day-long things.
Although I will say of our strategic planning process that, we talk a lot about the fact that it really frames up what we do for every single meeting. And so one of the reasons that I feel like we have a really high functioning council, not to get off of the open council work session and what we talked about, but is that everything that we do is really, really in line with our strategic plan and these the work that we do in these day-long sessions.
And a lot of some cities don't even do strategic planning, which, everybody can do what they want. I think that's kind of crazy. Very few cities do it on a yearly basis. Even doing it with a full-on every 2 years puts us ahead of the curve for a lot of people, because these are also, you're looking at big picture stuff. This is not the sort of stuff that okay, we're going to tick these 7 items off and then we never have to look at them again. A lot of them are ongoing. A lot of them we've made a lot of progress on, which our city manager mentioned, which I think is an important thing to realize. So doing it every other year does seem structurally still a lot more effort than many do. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
No shame to anybody who doesn't do it, but it's helped us, I think.
It's helped us a lot.
Yeah. And so that was that. Then we talked about the housing improvement area policy discussion. This is something that is pretty limited in scope. It's really based around HOAs being able to get some assistance from the city for projects that they may not be able to self-fund. Doesn't hurt our bonding, doesn't hurt our budget, but it allows us to help some of the facilities, owner-occupied facilities in town that may be, over time, they can fall into disrepair, and they need to have updates and things like that. And when you're paying dues already, to suddenly have a huge lump sum due because your roof is bad or your fence needs to be replaced can keep those things from happening. And it's in the best interest of both the HOA, the residents there, and the city to try and help facilitate that with whatever we can do. So that's really what that comes down to. It's an opportunity, it's been done in other places, to let the city give some assistance for some of the things that you don't always see cities paying attention to, because there's a lot of attention to development, there's a lot of attention to redevelopment, but maintenance of a existing condo or townhome association sort of falls through the cracks for a lot of cities. So this is our way of trying to get some assistance into that pocket too, because it's just as important as anybody else who lives in the city.
Yeah.
And we basically just authorized moving forward with that. Now, from here, it's an opt-in from the HOAs. We're not going to go out there and make anybody do it, but it's a tool that's out there, and hopefully people take advantage of it. If they don't, it's established in policy, so it'll be there when they do need to take advantage of it. And then the last thing, public purpose expenditure policy. This is also sort of a filling in the cracks sort of thing. There are certain things that don't statutorily are both not allowed or denied for cities to make expenditures on, which puts it in kind of a gray area where legally you want to establish, like, these are places we've identified where, even though it's not in statute for what the city can do, it's reasonable expenditures that we would make anyway. We put them in our budget, but this just makes it very clear cut that these are things that we are going to allow as expenditures. And it's things like sending people, staff, council, mayor, to conferences within reason, anything in-state, if it's multi-day, including some funding, single-day stuff. It's pretty open-ended. I think that was very intentional on the part of the city manager. But lots of other things, things you wouldn't necessarily think about it, employee recognition, stuff that are small expenditures. None of this is like big money. Anything that rises to a certain level has to be budgeted for. Any travel outside of the state has to be passed by council. So it doesn't open a lot of doors, but it just kind of puts a policy in place for those weird things that fall in the middle ground of not absolutely allowed, not disallowed, so you can do them, but it's better to just say, these are strictly the things that we feel should be in this grouping. So, well,
and I'll just say, and we've talked about this before, but council members participate in things like the League of Minnesota Cities Conference. I've done the Local Progress National Convening the last few years, and those opportunities to connect with councils, with other councils that are doing this kind of work, have been absolutely invaluable.
Yeah.
For our council, we just learn so much about the ways that other cities are tackling challenges, and are able to, bring some of those things back to our city and try to use them to make our city a better place. And there's just no way that we would get the same knowledge from, if we didn't participate.
And to pat ourselves on the back, there are definitely cities that have taken things from us because of those sorts of things. And that's also good, because you're establishing a relationship with somebody that, if you ever had to make a connection of somebody in Boise, Idaho is doing something really cool, and you may have met them at some point and talked to them about something you're doing that they borrowed, and so you've got that connection there, and it just everybody rises up a bit more on that. So that's basically the Open Council work session. Then we got to the main meeting, and do you want to kick it off?
So the first thing that we did was a resolution of support for peace officers and firefighters, and I think I don't have to tell anyone that this past week has been extraordinarily difficult for our police and firefighters, and for all of us who are thinking about what happened in Burnsville. It's a horrifying scenario, and something that we all hope will never happen in our city or to our people, but our police officers and our first responders and firefighters I don't know if everybody knows this, but they work together a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So we have our own police department in West St. Paul, and of course we have South Metro Fire. But anytime there's a call for backup or whatever, our police officers will get called out. Our fire, folks, our first responders might get called out.
Mm-hmm.
And in this particular situation, which I think probably most people know about at this point, a lot of the surrounding fire and police had been called out. So ours hadn't. So our police and fire were not directly involved in the situation as far as I understand. Yep. But they know the people from the other departments well. Yeah. And
actually they're doing a lot of cover right now for Burnsville, because obviously yep. Burnsville needs people filling in the gaps for people that are, healing. And so we've had a lot of our police doing work. Our staff has been working on behalf of Burnsville. We actually, in that, it is not just a resolution of support, mm-hmm. but also there was a budgetary item in there where we are adding $30,000 for overtime to our police department to make sure that they can cover all of this, cover Burnsville in their time of need without losing patrol in West St. Paul. Obviously, we're not going to take people away from West St. Paul that otherwise would be keeping you safe. But we added $30,000 of overtime payment to ensure that anything that's needed by Burnsville we can cover, and officers don't have to worry about any loss of pay, mm-hmm. any loss of time, anything like that.
Or having to say no.
Or saying no, we don't want to say no.
We don't want to say no. And if anyone from Burnsville is watching this, or anyone who was directly affected by this horrible situation, I just want to say our hearts are with you, mm-hmm. and anything that we can do.
Yeah, we're here for it.
We're here.
Yep.
So then we moved on to a proclamation honoring Women's History Month, which mm-hmm. is in March. A much less heavy topic, at least in this exact moment. We had an open council work session briefing, and we talked about these appointments, which actually were on the consent agenda. Yeah. But we could just go ahead and talk about that a little bit now. Mm-hmm. So we, I think if you watched the last one of these videos that we made, you saw that we were interviewing people for committees and commissions. So first of all, as always, want to give a huge shout out and say thank you to every single person who applied for committees and commissions. We were so lucky to get great applicants. We always mm-hmm. are, but we just feel like it says something really good about our city when people want to apply to be on these committees mm-hmm. and commissions. They're volunteer, and people commit to coming in and working hard and helping us to figure things out in our city. So,
mm-hmm. And we had the opportunity to fill every single vacant spot, mm-hmm. Which again, historically has not often or always been the case. And in fact, we had more applicants than we could place.
Yeah.
And so I think, before we get into the people that were appointed, I do want to say to anybody that was not appointed, it was absolutely not because of anything other than that we had a huge pool of applicants. There were difficult decisions. A lot of it had to do with ranking of which people wanted to do more. But I do want to say to anybody that did not make it past this round, it is in no way a measure of your application or who you are. As far as I'm concerned, the fact that you stepped up at all puts you in an extremely enviable position. Please keep coming back.
We appreciate you.
Yeah, I mean, any volunteer that wants to do work, mm-hmm. I could never begrudge them coming back, and I would love to continue to find places for people. And we will have openings that come up, it happens.
We will. And I want to say it's not just about how people ranked what they wanted, it's also about ward balance and trying to
there's a lot of factors that figure into this.
So with that being said, I want to go ahead and give a quick shout out to the folks who were appointed mm-hmm. to committees and commissions that are probably going to get calls from Nate, our city manager, in the next day or two. So to the Planning Commission, we have Maria Franzmeyer and Lisa Stevens coming back, and then Brooklyn Petrich. So Brooklyn, thank you so much for putting your name in and coming and talking to us at the last meeting. We really appreciated the chance to get to know you and are so excited to have you on planning. And I should have let you say that.
Oh, that's okay. You'll be sick of me soon enough, Brooklyn. You'll see me on a regular basis now.
So that term begins March 1st, which is in just a couple of days, but I don't know when the next planning meeting is.
Oh, it's third Tuesday in March.
So it's,
you got some time to prepare.
And then ends March 1st of 2027. To the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, we appointed Luke Abrahamson, Nolan Cornell, Leah Foxhill, and Angela Rizzo-Rosales. So the term for that also begins March 1st, 2024 and ends March 1st, 2026. And thank you to all of you for applying and for coming to get us, to get to know us a couple weeks ago. Just really appreciate the chance to get to know all of you and are very excited to have you on Parks and Rec. And then for Environmental Committee, which is my committee, I'm very excited to say that we have appointed Ashley Kondakar, and I hope I said that right, and I apologize if I didn't, and Troy LaFay. And the term begins March 1st, 2024 and ends March 1st, 2025. So we had a partial term and then we had a full term. So everyone can apply for reappointment when their term is up, but anyway. So for the full appointments, we appointed Kelly Gibson and Emily Virgin to the Environmental Committee. So again, beginning March 1st, 2024, and those ones end March 1st, 2027.
Yep, so.
Thank you so much to everyone who applied for committees and commissions, and we really look forward to having you.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Finally.
Parking lot.
It was a surprisingly big discussion.
Yeah. So it's the parking lot. So as you may know, we did a renovation with the help of the boosters. The
ice arena.
The ice arena. Thank you. And so we finished the restoration of the building, and then the follow-up was to do the parking lot. And this is actually something we started talking about years and years ago. And it's been a process. A couple quick points. There were some things that were brought up by some neighbors. I think that those were addressed, and most of the heavy lifting here was done by the Planning Commission. So as always, thank you for that. And then there was some discussion about there's a drive-through lane and whether that would be something that would be utilized or not. It went through as something that we thought would be utilized. Really not any changes from what came forward from planning. So if you do want to see kind of the plans for that, again, it's all in the packet if you want to look it up. And then that went through. I'm not sure when construction begins. I'd assume soon.
I don't know.
I'm assuming they're probably pretty ready to hit the ground running on this one because we've been planning it for a long time. It's been through Planning Commission and it's been going for a long time. So yeah, but I think that covers everything.
That's it.
All right.
That was the whole meeting. So let us know if you have any feedback, but we really appreciate you taking a few minutes to watch, and we'll see you next time.
Sounds good. Bye-bye.